Welcome to the Division of Global Affairs International Safety and Security Training video. This video training is brought to you by the Division of Global Affairs Office of International Safety and Security, or OISS, which is tasked with supporting international safety and security for all KSU students, faculty, and staff. The OISS has three primary goals. First, to develop policies, procedures, and protocols to encourage safe international travel practices for KSU students, faculty, and staff. Second, to monitor worldwide events for situations that might adversely impact KSU travelers. And third, to respond and assist KSU travelers in the event of an emergency overseas. The safety and security of students on international programs is increasingly in the spotlight. This, coupled with the seemingly endless reports of violence overseas, has made safety and education abroad a focus of concern and conversation for students and parents. With this spotlight comes increased scrutiny and higher expectations of the duty of care that universities should have for their education abroad programs and other international activities, including legal precedents and questions of liability. As we begin, let us consider two potential archetypes of faculty watching this training. One group of faculty may have directed many international programs and spent extensive time in the country or countries of study. The other group of faculty may be leading a program for the first time with less experience internationally and with the country or countries of study in particular. These groups are on two different sides of a continuum of preparation and expectation. Due to their familiarity with the country of study specifically and international programs generally, the first group likely believes nothing will surprise them. Conversely, the second group may be anxious about their international program and uncertain of what to expect or how best to prepare. Regardless of these different points of departure and perspective, both groups have an ethical and professional obligation to systematically consider the potential risks of international travel and prepare accordingly. They must also both be prepared for potential challenges or emergencies that could occur during their international travel and understand how to respond to such situations with student safety and university policy in mind. While an inexperienced education abroad director may miss details in the seemingly overwhelming amount of planning required, the familiarity of an experienced education abroad director can lead to inadvertent complacency as well. Our goal is to ensure that appropriate safety and security protocols are built into your program planning from the beginning, no matter your point of departure. These protocols will serve as the architecture to ensure that you are neither overwhelmed by too much detail nor inadvertently complacent in recognizing the evolving needs for international safety and security. So, what does it mean to prioritize safety and security? This training will guide you towards a comprehensive understanding of how to integrate and emphasize safety and security in your international programs. Emphasizing preparedness. Neglecting to build safety and security protocols into your international program risks not only the safety and security of your students and fellow faculty, but may also lead to failure of your academic program. Both threats to student or faculty safety and failed academic programs present potential legal, professional, and representational risks for you and the university. As you begin to prepare for your education abroad program, it is essential to understand that safety and security during international travel is primarily the responsibility of the travelers themselves. While KSU's Division of Global Affairs, the Education Abroad Office, and the Office of International Safety and Security are responsible for providing policies, procedures, guidance, and some direct assistance in making your travel as safe as possible, they cannot ensure your safety at all times. Both the faculty director and students themselves must understand their primary role in mitigating safety and security threats relevant to their international travel destination before they depart, as well as making responsible decisions during their international travel. There are three stages of risk mitigation that faculty directors must consider: the proactive stage, the active stage, and the reactive stage. Each stage includes important aspects that lead to the success of the next stage and of the overall program. The proactive stage. The safety and security requirements instituted through the Division of Global Affairs help to ensure consistency of planning in all programs. Prioritize the safety and security of all participants in your program just as much as the academic program itself. Remember that you are not only planning to contend with major emergencies, but also for small crises, inconveniences, and forced change in plans. Do not assume anything. Treat every program as a new program and advance the trip as if it was your first time. Don't rely heavily on past information while planning your current program. Local contacts may make your job easier, but always have a backup plan in case anything falls through. Logistics are key. Comprehensive planning is essential no matter where you are going. The dangers might differ from place to place, but accidents, crime, and illness happen everywhere. You can avoid most problems and ensure an effective response in the event of a crisis by ensuring that your program logistics are appropriate and adaptive to changing circumstances. Solid logistics are key to the proactive stage. For example, ensure that your transportation needs are properly planned. Confirm and reconfirm your lodging and specific room arrangements. Ensure that students have basic security, including locked doors and windows, in their accommodations as well as safes or secure rooms to store their belongings. Create a complete and realistic schedule that includes considerations such as sufficient numbers of breaks, access to fresh water and restrooms, and appropriate guides. Have intimate knowledge of the emergency resources during each stage of your trip. Don't just have the address of the nearest hospital, police station, an embassy, or consulate. Know how to get there and what to say to get help in the local language. Additionally, have backup plans. For instance, if you travel to an area where train service is commonly disrupted, prepare for the potential need for an alternative means of transportation. Ensure that you can reach local facilitators or emergency personnel if you become lost or stranded, and ensure that students have access or directions on how to reach you and emergency personnel if they are separated from the group and require assistance. Depending on your program, you may want to consider emergency contact cards with "in need of assistance" messaging translated on one side, and requiring all students to have operational cell phones. This may mean having an international plan, local SIM, or buying an inexpensive phone for use in-country. Proactive steps. Some examples of proactive steps to take include familiarizing yourself with the Education Abroad and International Safety and Security faculty resources. Ensure that you understand your role and responsibility as the Education Abroad Program Director, as well as your authority and mandate in addressing student-related safety and security issues. If you have questions or concerns regarding these guidelines, please contact your assigned Education Abroad coordinator or the Office of International Safety and Security. Discuss these policies as well as your roles and responsibilities with your students. Ensure that your students understand their own responsibility for making safe decisions and adhering to program policies and guidelines. Prioritize safety and security. Cultivate a mentality, not of paranoia, but of preparedness. This means anticipating multiple types of scenarios that you may encounter, from the relatively small situations to the major crises during both the planning process and when you are implementing your plans in the field. Be prepared to anticipate changes by considering potential challenges or disruptions to your plans before they occur. Discuss potential challenges and disruptions with your students and fellow faculty before you travel and before specific activities in-country. Ensure that everyone understands the need to adapt to changing conditions generally and changing safety and security conditions specifically. Determine whether there are active travel advisories for your country of study and prepare for specific risk factors for your locations of travel. Know the risk level of your destination and what constitutes that risk categorization. KSU restricts travel to regions with higher travel advisories and may require additional preparations to travel to certain regions. State Department advisories, as well as detailed information regarding travel to areas with advisories, may be found on the Office of International Safety and Security website. Ensure that you, your students, and your faculty colleagues understand the risks associated with your travel destinations. On-Call International, STEP, and CISI. Your Education Abroad Program Coordinator will ensure that all travelers, including faculty and staff, are registered for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP, and Cultural Insurance Services International, CISI. Students are also instructed to register for On-Call International as part of their Education Abroad Program application. You should ensure all faculty and staff are also registered for On-Call. These services have been developed to support international travelers and ensure that you can get appropriate assistance when dangerous situations develop. In the case of On-Call International and Cultural Insurance Services International, KSU and the Division of Global Affairs have deliberately curated these support services to ensure that all of their students, faculty, and staff have access to the best in-class services for risk mitigation, management, and response. Research. Research the current conditions in the region where you are traveling, not just in your actual locations, but also in surrounding areas and countries that might affect you. Examine local news coverage through foreign language or English medium periodicals in order to cultivate an awareness of threats, difficulties, or considerations for your travel that may not be reported in national travel advisories. If possible, speak or correspond with partners, vendors, or university partners in the area and request specific guidance on safety and security considerations for your local travel plans and activities. Oftentimes, local knowledge and direction can be the most important component of risk mitigation. In addition, research the specific places you are visiting or staying. Ensure that you know business hours, conditions, availability, and rules that may have changed since your initial planning period or your last visit. Consider temperature, terrain, insect, or animal threats, and other exterior conditions if you are planning outdoor excursions. Ensure you know when the sun sets so that you don't inadvertently find yourself in the dark in a place you would not want to be in such conditions. Don't simply rely on the U.S. State Department travel pages for your research on risk. Ensure that you draw from a cross-section of different sources and categories of information to inform yourself of current and future risks in country. Consider reviewing risk analyses from the United Kingdom, Australia, or other English medium nations. Look in travel guides like Rough Guide and Lonely Planet, as well as crowdsourced travel resources like TripAdvisor, but ensure that you vet and triangulate. For example, confirm with multiple sources any information that appears to contradict official guidance. Don't limit your due diligence to sources of information that simply confirm your expectations for safety and security. Look for information that challenges your assumptions, even if only to be aware of different perspectives on safety and security that may help you navigate unexpected risks on the ground. Vaccinations. Warn students of required and recommended vaccinations as early as possible. Vaccinations sometimes require multiple inoculations to be effective, and some require a minimum amount of time to become viable. Additionally, brief them about specific illness and safety conditions in the region. Tell students how to protect themselves from common risk factors such as ticks, mosquitoes, and other insects that may carry disease. If you are traveling in a location with dangerous scorpions or spiders, remind your students to check their shoes before putting them on if they are staying in ground floor accommodations where such threats are common. While some of these recommendations may be perceived as common sense, many of your students are not necessarily aware of these dangers because they have not had any experience with urban or rural conditions outside of the United States or even Georgia. Emergency preparedness. Know the nearest police stations, hospitals, embassies, and consulates for each place you are visiting. This is vital information for effective response to an emergency, but is also required information for KSU's yearly Clery report. Ensure that you have emergency contact numbers for all of these locations, and ensure that your students have the local emergency numbers for fire, police, and ambulance services if they need to call for help directly. Medical and psychological considerations. Students on faculty-led education abroad programs are required to complete the medical clearance form as part of their application. This form requires students to meet with a licensed healthcare provider before going abroad. It also prompts students to consider their physical and mental health prior to going abroad. Faculty directors will have access to the medical history students disclose on this form for emergency response purposes. Due to the physical and psychological stress factors associated with travel generally and international travel across time zones and national boundaries specifically, you will want to do everything that you can to help your students mitigate medical or psychological risk factors during your program. Increasingly, students who were previously unable or uncomfortable to travel abroad due to medical or psychological barriers are now able to take advantage of these transformative experiences thanks to medications and therapies that were previously unavailable. Unfortunately, a small number of students fail to maintain their medical or therapeutic treatments while abroad and may put both themselves and other travelers in danger. It is vital that you do everything that you can to support these students and their safety and security during your program. Encourage all of your students to inform you of any medical, emotional, mental, or personal considerations that may adversely affect them during the trip. Encourage them to get medical, dental, and therapeutic checkups prior to the trip, focusing on issues that might arise during travel, such as the strength and amount of any medication for the trip, dealing with chronic conditions that travel might exacerbate, and preventative treatment. For those students who may be seeing a doctor regularly for any health-related condition, encourage them to speak to their doctor about their travel. Ensure that your students know that any disclosures require you and the university to make every reasonable accommodation to their needs. But such accommodation may be difficult or impossible if their needs are not disclosed beforehand. A large number of international emergencies for education abroad have involved students with underlying physical, mental, or emotional health conditions that can become exacerbated while overseas without the correct preparation. The OISS offers annual Student Mental Health Abroad Lunch and Learn sessions that help prepare faculty to address such situations. You can view the most recent video recording of this session on the OISS website. It is strongly recommended that you watch this video before your trip. As always, if you have additional questions or concerns, please reach out to the OISS staff for assistance. Rules. Establish rules and parameters for the trip that are specific to your travel destination and activities. Make sure that you and your students know the procedures for discipline and the possible penalties for inappropriate, dangerous, or disruptive behavior. Incorporate consequences for such behaviors into your syllabus, which serves as a documented notice of program expectations. Ensure that your students know that the KSU Student Code of Conduct is applicable no matter where they are. Consider using a behavior contract, asking students to sign an acknowledgement that restates relevant portions of the Student Code of Conduct in order to emphasize their importance during your education abroad program. Remind students that the rules and parameters that you are putting in place are for their safety and security. Logistics. Be very thorough with logistics and ensure that all travelers are intimately aware of them. Know the who, when, where, and how for every move your program makes. Informing students of logistics will enable them to react appropriately in the event of changing conditions. Make sure that you provide all students with a detailed schedule while emphasizing that local conditions and considerations may require change at any time. Ensure that students understand the importance of timely attendance for program activities and have appropriate attire for each part of your program. Make sure that students have a rendezvous point or other means of contacting you if they are separated from the group. If you intend to use a buddy system for any portion of the official program, for example during field excursions, assign these student pairings before travel abroad. Shared room assignments are also helpful to establish in advance of travel. Consider this. On a recent trip to Paris, France, there were record floods that disrupted the city and access to major thoroughfares. The students and faculty were supposed to meet at a certain building, then make their way to a dinner event. The flooding closed the nearest bridges across the Seine, and students called the faculty with program-assigned cell phones to let them know that they would be late. Because the students knew the dinner location, it was quickly and easily determined that they would be able to meet directly at the restaurant because it was closer to the bridge they could cross. Recall plan. Formulate a recall plan. In the event of an emergency, there should be an organized method of contacting all travelers to determine their locations and conditions. You will be expected to respond to status reports from the Office of International Safety and Security concerning the well-being of your travelers. Class rosters and itineraries. Faculty directors must forward class rosters and itineraries to the Office of International Safety and Security no later than 2 weeks prior to departure. This should contain student, faculty, and staff names, email addresses, mobile contact numbers, flight information, residences during travel, mode of transportation between cities, and the police precinct address for each overnight stay. A convenient spreadsheet is available on the Office of International Safety and Security website. Providing this information is not only a matter of OISS policy and procedure, but also related to KSU's federal obligations under the Clery Act. Country briefings. Obtain country briefings from the Office of International Safety and Security, or you can run your own in OnCall International's portal. Request safety and security briefing for your class from the OISS. A request form is available on the Office of International Safety and Security website. You should also review relevant State Department travel and CDC country profiles. Available on the U.S. State Department travel and CDC travel websites for your country in detail, and bring any questions about safety and security to the Office of International Safety and Security. Often, if you have specific questions about local conditions and risks, the Office of International Safety and Security can help you contact local regional security officers at local U.S. embassies and organize a briefing call with the Overseas Security Advisory Council within the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Diplomatic Security. Emergency response cards. Though optional, you are strongly encouraged to obtain customized emergency response wallet cards from the Office of International Safety and Security. These will contain emergency telephone numbers for your travel, as well as a message in multiple languages on the reverse with instructions to contact the U.S. State Department in the event of an emergency. The Office of International Safety and Security can create custom cards for you and your program with at least 1 week's prior notice. Clery, Title IX, and the Violence Against Women Act. Make sure you are up to date with the Clery Act, Title IX of the Education Amendments Law of 1972, and the Violence Against Women Act standards and reporting requirements. You can contact the KSU Clery Act Coordinator, Major Trudy Vaughn, Assistant Chief of Police and Clery Coordinator, at tvaugha6@kennesaw.edu or 470-578-6206. Similarly, you can contact Ms. Erica Gravitt, Executive Director of Institutional Equity and Title IX Coordinator, at eeo@kennesaw.edu or 470-578-5189. Even if you are familiar with Clery and Title IX, you may want to consider these individuals if you have any concerns or questions about potential Clery or Title IX issues, as reporting requirements and procedures have changed. Please note that you are required to comply with all university policies and federal statutes as the faculty director for your program. You are responsible for knowing and understanding these, so please ask for assistance if you require additional information or support. Title IX workshops are offered at various times throughout the year, and individual consultations are also available. As always, if you have questions or concerns, the Division of Global Affairs and the Office of International Safety and Security stands ready to assist you and connect you with the resources that you need before, during, and after your program. You should also specifically prepare for the potential for physical or sexual assault, as well as incidents of discrimination or harassment during your program. You should have a tentative plan in place for both immediate and emergency responses to situations of these varieties, and be prepared to follow up with relevant university offices once the immediate situation has been addressed. Similarly, consider what will you do in the event of mental or physical illness, if the electricity goes out, if there is a terrorist attack or natural disaster. Where would you go? How would you react? While it is impossible to predict every crisis that could happen, it is possible to consider types of scenarios, large and small, that are likely to occur. Having an idea of what your first actions will be in the event of incidents and who you will contact next will greatly increase the likelihood of those critical first minutes being productive in stabilizing the situation and improving the overall outcome. While each country and location has its own unique variable, it is important that you understand the general procedures, resources, and points of contact in case of emergency or crisis. These are detailed in the later slides within this training under the Reactive Steps section. The Proactive Matrix. The Proactive Matrix is available on the Office of International Safety and Security website and is an important resource for anyone traveling overseas. The matrix has 5 categories of possible emergency situations that could occur on your trip. Move through the matrix, answering the questions appropriately to determine what your next move would be. This is a general exercise to help get you thinking about the various decision points and considerations involved in anticipating and mitigating international risk. But it is up to you to interpret the matrix categories within the context of your particular program abroad. Remember that you can always reach out to the Office of International Safety and Security to answer questions and receive a customized proactive risk mitigation briefing for your particular program and location. Active risk mitigation. Active risk mitigation, by definition, is the process of taking steps to reduce the risk or severity of the impact and/or probability of an occurrence. Active risk mitigation involves putting the plans made in the proactive stage into action if necessary. An extensive and well-thought-out proactive plan leads to easier and more effective active risk mitigation. Verifying train schedules, checking for possible labor strikes, confirming restaurant reservations, communicating with bus drivers, charging your cell phones, and mapping out potential roadblocks are all part of active risk mitigation. These processes and more are all crucial to the active stage. Use available tools. Use the OnCall International Alert System and the TripHub app. Using these resources could spare you the hassle and embarrassment of altering important plans. These services have been curated for you and your students so that you have additional resources and expert guidance to both navigate incidents or changes during your program, as well as respond to developing safety and security threats. Verify logistics. Verify and re-verify your logistics and arrangements. Most threats to safety and security are driven by failures in logistical planning. Becoming stranded in a dangerous part of a city due to a mistake in transportation arrangements, or finding that your accommodations were not confirmed, can create unsafe conditions for you and your students. Ensure that everybody is familiar with schedule and logistics, and how to communicate with one another in case of changes or disruptions to the planned schedule. Know where your travelers are at all times. Ensure that they provide you details regarding free time, and that these are provided to the OISS to be entered into on-call. Be available. Be available and accessible to your travelers and to KSU administrators. You are responsible for responding to your travelers' emergency needs throughout the program, not just when they are participating in program events. Ensure timely responses to students' needs. Rally points. Determine a place to regroup wherever you visit. This will be invaluable in emergencies as well as when students get separated during activities. Don't choose somewhere in front of the building you are visiting. In the event of an emergency in the building, which is the time you're most likely to need the rally point, that's not where you want to be. A better choice would be in front of a statue across the plaza, or another easily recognizable space that is unlikely to be a target of protest, disruption, or attack. Situational awareness. Be aware of surrounding conditions and monitor current events in your location. Again, the TripHub app is very helpful for this. Monitor the local news for weather, political, and police activity. Keep your eyes open. For instance, in the Old City of Jerusalem, it is common for spontaneous protests or demonstrations to break out. Notice if local small businesses are closing earlier than normal. They are often in tune with moods and events that can give you sufficient warning to leave the area before an issue arises. Adapt to changing conditions. An important but sometimes difficult thing to do is to adapt to changing conditions. You worked hard to organize visits, tours, and activities. But if conditions change, don't plow ahead. Err on the side of caution. Enforce trip rules. Enforce the trip rules that you laid out for the travelers in the proactive stage and that you might have needed to amend during the trip itself. Consistency is key. Typically, there are due process considerations that are described in the Student Code of Conduct, in which you must follow when establishing consequences for student misbehavior or disruption. Make sure that you understand your authority as the faculty director and the process for addressing and documenting student infractions before you travel. It is important to document and report violations of trip rules through the BRT, specifically if the violation or multiple violations could result in student dismissal from the program. Observe. Observe participants for changing behaviors and difficulties. Address them before they escalate. Regular communication with students and a red flag reporting protocol for peers is an important part of monitoring individual and group dynamics for potential risks. Stay in regular communication with the Education Abroad Office and the Office of International Safety and Security. When incidents occur, ensure that you document these incidents via the BRT reporting procedures. If you do not inform appropriate parties and document incidents, you limit the university's ability to assist when or if the situation escalates or worsens. Reactive stage. Despite your well-planned and executed advance, there will be times when something doesn't go as planned or an emergency situation arises. This can range from a crisis to an inconvenience. Being intimately familiar with the proactive plan is important. By having all the contingency plans already formulated and internalized, the response can be swift, decisive, and effective. All of the following reactions can include the term if necessary. However, if in doubt, you should probably follow this list exhaustively. Don't panic. First, don't panic. Make a preliminary evaluation of the situation. As long as you don't panic, your body and mind are very good at doing this automatically. Reactive stage steps. Step 1. Get to a safe place. Step 2. Determine any injuries and what the current conditions are. Step 3. Determine whether to shelter in place or evacuate. Step 4. Always think local first. Activate local EMS if necessary. Step 5. After notifying EMS if necessary, contact CISI and open a case with them. Remember, CISI also provides legal assistance as well as medical services. Step 6. Initiate a recall of your travelers to determine their location, conditions, and needs. Step 7. Initiate KSU assistance by calling KSU Police Dispatch at 470-578-6666 and telling them that you have an emergency on an international program. They will reach out to the Office of International Safety and Security. You can also call OISS personnel directly. Their numbers are listed in the resources, and you should have these numbers programmed in all phones. Step 8. Be sure to initiate a BRT report and keep it updated. BRT and incident reporting. When in doubt, report. Education Abroad and International Safety and Security have partnered with the Behavioral Response Team, or BRT, for all incident reporting. Faculty are required to submit a BRT report for any incidents that occur. BRT reports can be submitted using the online form hosted on their website or via email to brt@kennesaw.edu. BRT reporting is not limited to behavioral incidents. The online form has a specific category for education abroad. While there are no wrong incidents to report, some of the more common include physical or mental health incidents, behavioral or conduct concerns, and safety incidents. Submitting a BRT report does not necessarily mean disciplinary action will be or needs to be taken, but ensures that key campus units are notified and can provide additional support and guidance as needed. More information regarding the BRT can be found on their website. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact your Education Abroad Program Coordinator. Rules, regulations, provisos, and addendums. Itineraries and rosters must be forwarded to the Office of International Safety and Security no later than 2 weeks before departure. A convenient spreadsheet that you can use is available on the Office of International Safety and Security website. The rosters and itineraries must include the names, email addresses, mobile telephone numbers of students and faculty and staff, dates and means of travel both to and from and within the countries, all lodging including addresses and dates of occupancy, and the address of the police precinct covering each lodging. This is required not only for safety reasons, but also by the Clery Act. The university will be subjected to heavy fines if this is not provided. Weekend travel. Program directors should have an approval system for weekend travel by the students. Included in this should be a requirement that students provide itineraries for side trips during their off time, preferably by the Wednesday before the weekend travel. Your Education Abroad Program Coordinator can provide you with independent student travel forms for students to complete for non-program related travel. These should be forwarded to globalsafety@kennesaw.edu to be entered in the On-Call International portal. Clery Act, Title IX, and VAWA. The Clery Act has been extended to overseas locations, and the university is subject to a fine of over $57,000 for each failure to provide the required information. You are a campus security authority under the Clery Act. Be intimately familiar with your responsibilities as a campus security authority. Be knowledgeable with the provisions and requirements under Title IX and the Violence Against Women Act. Of particular concern to the international traveler regarding Title IX and the Violence Against Women Act is the requirement to provide access to services in response to sexual assault. Depending on where you are traveling, sexual assault might not be treated the same by the criminal justice system as in the United States. In some places, the victim might be charged for a crime. It is imperative that the faculty and staff is prepared to handle this. In these cases, it is important to immediately contact the embassy to determine the best course of action. It is imperative that you provide the OISS information about the police precincts covering the area of students' lodging. Specific information and guidance on these topics may be obtained from the KSU Clery Compliance Coordinator and the Title IX Coordinator. On-Call International. On-Call International is a third-party security advisor contracted by KSU to assist in tracking international travelers on KSU-affiliated programs and to provide real-time safety and security intelligence and notifications. By registering with On-Call, KSU travelers are able to access On-Call's website, where they can obtain briefings for their destinations, including safety and security information, practical travel advice, local etiquette, weather conditions, cultural information, and more. In addition, travelers can customize security alerts. The TripHub app can be downloaded from the App Store or iTunes and is available for iOS and Android. In order to register, you must use your KSU email address and the membership code 1000. If you have registered your travel with On-Call, the app will automatically sync with your travel. The app provides excellent customizable alerts for your region of travel. Be advised that we do not contract with On-Call International for emergency response. Therefore, if a traveler uses the call assistance feature, it will connect them to an On-Call operator who will forward them to KSU Police Dispatch for further assistance. Cultural Insurance Services International, CISI. The University System of Georgia has contracted with CISI for Education Abroad International Insurance. This insurance is required in education abroad programs, and the cost for students and program directors is built into the program costs. Education Abroad program coordinators will register your faculty-led program for CISI insurance and forward the appropriate information to you and your students. KSU has contracted with Cultural Insurance Services International to provide insurance without charge to the traveler for all KSU faculty and staff traveling internationally on KSU-affiliated business. While you are automatically covered, it is highly advisable that you register your travel on the KSU CISI portal. You can obtain insurance cards and information there, as well as simplifying the claims process if you have registered your trip. Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP. All KSU international travelers are required to register in STEP. Faculty-led programs are automatically registered by their Education Abroad program coordinators. It is still wise to register as an individual. The STEP is a free service to allow U.S. citizens and nationals traveling abroad to register their trip with the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. It enables travelers to receive important information from the embassy about conditions and embassy services at your destination. It also helps the embassy contact you in the event of an emergency or for your friends and family to get in touch with you in an emergency. You can register at step.state.gov. Finalize and review. If there was an incident, completely and objectively assess where planning, actions, and reactions could be improved. If you want assistance, do not hesitate to contact Michael Swayze. If there were changes with your lodging information, including dates of occupation, and the nearest police precinct and address. Provide this information to the OISS by emailing it to globalsafety@kennesaw.edu within 2 weeks of returning. This is required for the annual Clery Act report. Review what worked and what didn't work on the program. Keep contact information for those who helped you, or didn't, in companies or lodging that were particularly good and bad. All this will help you and other trip leaders with future programs. Resources. Some important campus resources to consider are BRT reporting, Office of International Safety and Security, Education Abroad Office, Counseling and Psychological Services, Women's Resource Center, LGBTQ Resource Center, Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery, Student Disability Services, Institutional Equity and Title IX, Student Health Services. Important government resources to consider are the U.S. State Department, the Overseas Security Advisory Committee, OSAC, Center for Disease Control, CDC. Other resources to consider include Proactive Matrix, Safety and Security Briefing Request, Example Rosters and Itineraries, On-Call International Portal, Cultural Insurance Services International, CISI, Supporting Students Abroad, Mental Health Lunch and Learn, NAFSA. The DGA Office of International Safety and Security was established to help all of KSU's study and research abroad programs function safely and successfully. The better the planning for events, the fewer the undesirable situations, and the easier the response. The Office of International Safety and Security's goal is to give you, and sometimes require you to use, the tools to most efficiently integrate safety and security into your overall program plan. Remember, your program cannot be effective when you or your students are concerned for their safety. Security plans exist to support your programs. Having the right mindset and taking a few precautions will help to ensure a highly successful and enjoyable trip. Thank you for participating in the DGA Office of International Safety and Security training.